It seems that Royal Enfield have brought out a 2-in-1 motorcycle. What do you mean by that, here you ask? Well, if you keep watching, I'll explain all after the intro. Hello everybody, I hope you're all well. Today I'm riding Royal Enfield's Shotgun 650. I love how I've gone from having no Royal Enfields on the channel to quite a few. I'm not complaining though. So today I'm just popping out for a coffee and I'm going to talk to you guys about this bike and what I think about it. So Royal Enfield recently seemed to be getting quite a bit of use out of the 650 platform. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar about this 650 platform, it is a 648cc air and oil cooled single overhead cam parallel twin. So this bike produces 46 brake horsepower at 7,250 RPM and 52.3 newton meters of torque at 5,650 RPM. So this engine was first brought out in the Interceptor, so the Interceptor 650. Then they used the engine in the Continental GT, which is the more sort of cafe racer version of the Interceptor. You've got the clip-on bars, you've got the sort of nod to the old school cafe racers. You can put fairing on that and make it even more cafe racer-ish. And then most recently we have the Super Meteor, which is their cruiser. Now I rode that bike not really expecting to like it, and it actually surprised me quite a lot. I found that it actually flowed quite nicely. I found for my stature, ergonomically it was quite nice. I know some people do complain about the Super Meteor with lower back pain because of those feet forward controls, especially if you're quite a tall individual. But as somebody that's quite short, I didn't personally suffer from that plight. And now, finally, we have the Shotgun 650, which is kind of more of a bobber style bike as opposed to a full-on cruiser that the Super Meteor is. So just to give you a little idea about the ergos of this bike, I'm going to insert a bit of B-roll footage now so you guys can see how it is for me to sit on this bike. Now, as you guys know, 5'4" individual, 29-inch inside leg measurement, or 162 centimeters tall, and my inside leg measurement is 73.66 centimeters for those of you who prefer those metrics. And this bike is slightly taller than the Super Meteor. I say slightly, it feels a fair bit taller, with a seat height of 795mm. Today I'm matchy. I've gone for my Knox khaki green to match the colour scheme of this bike, which is drill green. Now this bike starts at £6,799, and I really do like the direction that Royal Enfield have taken this bike. Royal Enfield aren't daft. They know that the customisation scene of their bikes in India is insane. Whether it's Interceptors or Conti, GTs, or even Himalayas, people have something to add to it, to bolt to it, to strip off it. They get quite creative over there. And Royal Enfield really wanted to give the worldwide market some customization opportunities straight from out the factory. So as you will see with this bike, it has currently just a single seat that I have perched my little bottom upon, but with a detachable subframe that can bolt on with 4 different bolts, you can actually make this more into a bit of a cruiser as opposed to a bobber, because you can put that pillion seat on and the rack as well. Let's go around here, second gear, wanger in. Guys, don't be alarmed at my phone absolutely wobbling all over the show like jello. I've actually got it on a Peak Designs mount, and it's supposed to be like that for vibration damping. It's going nowhere. So yeah, on the customization front, as mentioned, this bike comes with that pillion seat from factory, so it's not something that you have to buy as an optional extra, but you can remove it if you do like that more stripped back bobber look. Which, when Royal Enfield were dropping this off, they rang me and they said, "Kate, do you want the seat on or off?" And I said, "Oh, go on, we'll have the cool look, take it off." BMW, can't miss it. Hey, look, that guy's living proof that GS's do wave. It just depends who's on them. Oh no, look at this big Bertha we've got stuck behind. Well, that's going to ruin a nice sprightly ride, isn't it? Especially with whatever it's spraying off the back. Oh, that'll be this. Oh, gravel. Yeah, we don't like that so much. So the ergos on this bike definitely do feel a bit sportier than the Super Meteor. We have pegs that aren't so far forward. Royal Enfield call them mid controls. Well, they're still a little bit more forward than what I'm used to on your generic naked bikes. I keep trying to figure out where my feet are supposed to go whenever I stop. But yeah, that seat for a start is mega comfy. It's scooping my bum, cupping my bum, quite nice. If we look at the hardware of this bike, we've got Showa upside down forks. They are non-adjustable, but we've got 120mm travel. And then on the rear we have a Showa twin shock rear suspension unit situation, which does have 5 levels of preload adjustability. On the braking front, at the front we have a Bimble caliper, which is a 2-piston floating caliper, and that's on a disc that has a diameter of 320mm. And then on the rear we've got the same caliper, a Bimble 2-piston floating caliper on a 300mm disc. Now I must say the rear brake is quite a strong brake. So, you know, we've got a lot of weight to stop when we're braking. It's 240 kilograms wet, and that's with 90% fuel in, as well as all the oils and stuff like that. So for something that's quite heavy, you know, it does definitely need to stop. And the front brake on its own, although sufficient, does need, you know, a little bit of work. You've got to really, you know, pull it in if you want to stop relatively sharpish. Whereas if you just introduce a bit of back brake as well, it's definitely a bit stronger, a bit more of a potent brake, that's for sure. Oh, it's got that nice wham. And one thing that I really like about this engine is you can get it sounding sexy with a set of aftermarket pipes on. I heard an Interceptor the other day and I was like, whoa, that sounds tasty. But yeah, Royal Enfield, you know, say that this bike is designed to be easily customised. I don't know how easy it would be to completely remove the rear fender and just have a like a floating seat, but you know, they suggest that it's doable. I just don't know how labour intense something like that would be. But for those people that do want the single seat but don't want to commit to having to angle grind off their frame, like people would have to do on the Harley Davidsons if they wanted the single seat effect on certain bikes. You know, you don't have to start chopping your frame up and voiding your warranty, which is 3 years on this, by the way. You know, it's not hard to get these round bends, and it can stop quite adequately. But while we're parked, or stationary should I say, if we look at the dash, they've taken this straight off the Super Meteor in essence. We've got the analog speedometer, we've got a little LCD bit in the middle that shows you your fuel, it shows you the time, it shows you gear indicator and trip as well. And we've got a little I button here where you can just rotate through the odometer, trip A, trip B, that's basically it. Here on this side you have Royal Enfield's Tripper, and I could have connected it today because I do have the Royal Enfield app, but I don't know, I just like my trusty Google Maps, which ironically I think the Tripper utilises. And the Tripper actually does talk to you through your intercom as well. Sorry, the bike's quite a way out on this bike, hence me having to rev it a little bit to get it to move. We also have a USB port on this as well, so you can charge your phone on the go if you wish. But yeah, the tech on this is extremely basic. Some would argue that's a pro, some would argue that's a con. So you can pick up the shotgun in a few different colours. The basic colour is sheet metal grey, and that starts at £6,699. Then you have two other colours which are £100 more at £6,899, and that is drill green, what I'm on now, and plasma blue. And then you have stencil white, which is their hero colour, which is £6,899. Now, I have heard people say that the Shotgun 650 rides a bit like a sports bike, and I haven't really been able to push the bike on this ride. It's just ended up being a bit of a trafficy commute to get a coffee. But maybe that deserves a whole video in itself, to see if I can find some really twisty, really crazy roads and see if I can make it handle like a sports bike, and see if there's any truth to these magnificent journalistic claims. We'll see. But yeah, so far I've no gripes with how this thing rides. We do have an 18-inch tubeless wheel on this, which is slightly smaller than on the Super Meteor, which is 19-inch. Yeah, one thing to note as well about this bike is because it's 46 brake horsepower, it is A2 compliant. You don't have to wave at me, guys. I don't personally want to hit a bus. It's more self-preservation than me being nice. Yeah, I have seen this bike as well with bar end mirrors. It looks pretty snazzy with bar end mirrors, but we haven't got them equipped today on this. We just got the ones as they come from the factory. Oh, what a beautiful blossom tree. Here we are. Job's a good one. Time for an oat milk latte, hopefully. And then we'll give it a ride back. Oh, look at that, that's a proper single seat on that Dragstar. And then we've got this imitation single seat because we've still got this big fender, which I can imagine if we remove that and just have it suspended, I wonder what that would look like from a back end perspective. I wonder if anyone's done it. I'll have a look on Google, and if they have, I'll insert some pictures. Right guys, so I've had my little coffee I didn't film it. Not that there's much interesting about filming a coffee, but I did have a nice chat with the lady who owns the gasket, and she's a lovely lady. She rides herself as well. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about a few perceived pros and cons of this bike that I've kind of gathered from riding it. So one of the things that I think is definitely a massive pro is this engine. I mean, it's used across 3 other bikes in the range. It is a plodder at 46 horsepower, but it's just easy going with it. You know, the spread of torque is quite nice. You can get your overtakes in if you just get your gears right, and yeah, it's just easy to ride. Another pro, the price. I think the price is very, very reasonable for what you get. Another personal pro of this bike is the build quality of it. I feel like with the 600 range, with the Interceptor and the Contis, I feel like the Super Meteor build quality is kind of a cut above those two, and then I feel like this is, you know, along a similar vein as a Super Meteor. They just really thought about putting this thing together really nicely. You know, even just from how the light is mounted on, everything just, you know, looks kind of nice. Yeah, we're not sitting in this if we can help it. Oh, look at that. Sheesh. We'd be daft to sit in this, wouldn't we? Although we do need to be looking at where we can squeeze in shortly. Just here, I reckon. That'll do. So you've always got to be careful when you're overtaking and it goes into a lane like this, because you don't want to enter that and then something decide to turn on you. So if it's clear like this and there's nothing going to be turning, then in my opinion it's safe to go into it. But we are coming up to a solid that we're not allowed to overtake on, so we can just tuck in here and be a well-behaved citizen. But yeah, just the build quality of it is lovely. Well, with one exception, which is going to be in my cons list. Another pro of this bike, which I think is a pro in this day and age, is its lack of tech. I don't normally say that. You guys know I love a good quick shifter and auto blipper, but there are just some bikes that it's not appropriate on, and this is one of them. It doesn't need it. It's not a performance based machine, that's for sure. But the tech of this, you know, we don't have a TFT dash, so that's one less thing to kind of go wrong. We don't have modes, we don't have traction control, we don't have anything crazy, we don't have cruise control, we don't have ride-by-wire throttle. We don't have any kind of cool tech with this bike, and you know what, I feel like that's how a lot of people like it, because we do live in a world now where if there's something wrong with your bike, you've got to get it plugged in at a dealership to even start to diagnose what could possibly be wrong with it. But when you've got bikes with limited tech, it is just adding to the list of things to not go wrong. And especially with, you know, an air and oil cooled engine, working on these bikes, maintenance and stuff like that, it just keeps things a bit simple in an age where everything's going a bit complicated, because you've got technology to allow it to be complicated. But we do still have little practical bits like a USB as standard. And also, I know that tech is limited, but we also do have the Tripper, which connects to the navigation app of Royal Enfields. Oh, that's gorgeous. So another good thing about this bike, on paper it does seem a little weighty, 240 kilograms with 90% fuel. But the good news is it doesn't feel top heavy in the slightest. So I do feel like people that are maybe put off this bike's weight on paper, you know, they shouldn't worry about it too much when you're actually on it and riding and just flowing. It's actually very, very manageable. Now, if I'm moving on to cons of this bike, it actually starts with the word con, but this bike's done 700 miles and I can already see a little bit of evidence of condensation in the dash. Now, I just feel like it's something that Royal Enfield really struggled to get right. And I know you could argue, well, it's built to a price and it's pretty cheap for, you know, all this goodness that you get, that you can kind of excuse a bit of a condensation dash. You know, come on, get it right, Royal Enfield. Maybe it's not so much of a problem where these, you know, normally sell in India. I can imagine there's probably not going to be much issues with condensation and stuff, but in the UK, from all the Royal Enfields I've kind of ridden, the Interceptor had condensation on it. I noticed it on the Super Meteor as well, and I can see it glistening. I can see it glistening in the sunshine here, so that is definitely a con. I do wish they would just get it right. Another con, I guess you could argue that the colours may be a little bit funky for a more mature audience, but then again, I know that, you know, certainly for my eyes, like, I actually really love this green, but I shared a post with my patrons that I was getting this bike, and a few of them were like, yeah, I like the green, but I'm not so sure about the fluorescent details. And I understand. It is a bit of a strange match, like camo, khaki, camouflage, and then bright fluorescent yellow. Same with the plasma blue. That's not to my taste at all. But then again, colour is subjective. That's a bit of a weak con, to be honest. We'll deviate away from the route I was going to go. I was going to stick off motorways, but we're going to go on a motorway. And we're just going to see what it is like on the motorway in terms of power, in terms of, you know, wind blast. We'll see what it's like. Okay, a bit of a blast, a one junction blast. So we got up to 60 pretty quick. I'm not sure how my audio is going to be on this, guys. But honestly, I'm quite used to naked bikes, so I actually don't mind riding without a screen because I've got an equal force hitting me. Like with a screen, sometimes it can deflect where the wind hits you and you can get a bit buffeted. Whereas at least if you don't have any screen, the wind does just kind of hit you and you just deal with it. But you don't have any weather protection, which I guess is a con, but can it really be a con if this is the type of genre of bike you decide to go for? I guess not. So guys, this is just my initial impressions, ride review of it. Like I say, I've got this bike for 2 extra weeks, so I'll try and put some miles on it, gather some long-term views on this thing. I say long-term, 2 weeks ain't long-term, but it is for a review on a bike that's quite popular. But yeah, I will report back to you guys, but for now, I'm going to take you back to my outro. Right everybody, I'm going to round my vlog up on my first impressions of Royal Enfield's Shotgun 650. What do you guys think of the Shotgun 650? I mean, personally, I'm quite looking forward to seeing what people do in terms of customization with this, because I do like a good bobber with a bit of a floating seat. I mean, not very practical if you ride 2 up, but I suppose that's the beauty of this thing. If you wanted to ride 2 up, you don't have to sacrifice that. You can put that subframe on and then be able to take a pillion. So it seems that Royal Enfield keep throwing so many different genres of this 650 platform at us. First with the Interceptor, then the Continental GT, then the Cruiser with the Super Meteor, and now finally the Bobber with the Shotgun 650. What do you think's next? What do you think Royal Enfield are going to bring to the table? I would have thought a 650, but a Scrambler would be pretty cool, but then would that be too similar to the Himalayan 450, given the fact that that engine has got more power, it's now water cooled, we've got around 40 brake horsepower. This is 46. Would it be different enough to justify it as a model in itself? Who knows? If they make it visually different and more of a hipster style Scrambler, who knows? But let me know in the comments below what direction you think Royal Enfield will go next. Maybe with the 650. Right everybody, well I think that's enough from me. I hope you've enjoyed this vlog. If you have, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It always helps, and you know I appreciate every single one of you that does subscribe. And until the next time guys, take care, ride safe, and I'll see ya on the next vlog. Bye!